If you work with older packs or even older monoblocks, you have to find a way to trigger them from your camera. And there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. In the really old days, they would have used a cable that would have gone from the camera directly to the pack. There are optical slaves, which I'm going to talk about in this video. And there's also wireless triggers, which I'm going to talk about a little bit as well. So, hi, my name's Steve. I enjoy using old studio equipment. I'm an amateur photographer. I like to use things that would have been built 20 or 30 years ago. I like it because it works great and it's inexpensive. And that's going to be what you're looking at here, too. A lot of used equipment. Some's new, but most of it's used. And it's reliable and inexpensive. So here is an old Speedotron pack, and if you take a look at the left, the sync port is actually a household. It's called household sync, and it looks like an outlet in your house that you'd plug a lamp into. It's not that common these days. I don't even think they make them these days that way, but some of the old Speedotron packs and some of the other ones have that household plug. On a Pro Photo, another old one, its sync port is in the lower right. It's a little bit more common. Phono plug is what it uses, and we're going to take a look at those. So within these packs, then you have two different ways that you can trigger them. One is through an optical slave, and that's what we're looking at here. These are made by a company called Wein. They're old, they're used. The other way is through a radio transmitter. But let's talk about the Weins. So here, the first thing I would say is get the brand called Ultra. I've tried a lot of the Weins, and of those, the ones that work by far the best are the ones that are Ultra. So I have two of them here with the bottom. One's household plug, one's a phono plug, and they're really, really, really sensitive. So they work great indoors. You can use the Ultras outside, but they work a lot better inside. And that's sort of a knock off these optical slaves, is you can't really use them outside. The ambient light just doesn't work well with them. And for the ultra slaves, you're going to pay a little bit more, but I've actually put a strobe on top of my camera. A cheap one. I think I paid $30 for it, and set it to its lowest power, pointed it away from the slave, and bounced it off a wall, and it fired the pack. So very, very sensitive if you get the Ultra. The battery options you're looking at here is works great outside, works great inside. The downside is you need batteries. So all of these work with either AAA or AA batteries. The Younguno is one you can buy now. I think you can get a pair of them for $35 on Amazon. I've used them for a long time. They work great. The cord that you would get to attach to your pack is actually going to be PC. And you can see that at the bottom of the Younguno. So PC, that is the end, if you will, that's at the top of this cord. And the other end of this cord is a household plug. So I use this cord with the Younguno trigger to go into the Speedotron pack. And you can get the cord at a B&H or Adorama, someplace that sells photo equipment. They're not that expensive. You might even get them on Amazon. But with the Younguno, you need to get it in either Canon or Nikon. So if you have a Canon or Nikon, it's a no-brainer to figure that out. I use a Sony or I've used Fuji, and I found that the Canon version works just great. So all the Younguno is doing is firing the pack. It's not controlling anything else. There's no TTL, there's no high-speed sync, there's no nothing. It just literally, it's like a garage door opener. Just fires the pack. On the Pocket Wizards, I have two of them here. I like them both. Excuse me. The Plus 2 is older, and the Plus 3 is got some more features. So let me start with the Plus 2. It has 4 channels. One unit can work on your pack. The identical unit can go on your camera, so they call it a transceiver. It can transmit and receive. That's how the Younguno is as well. It's the same unit that can transmit and receive. And what's nice about that is, if you lose one or it breaks, then you can have some redundancy, right? You can have a couple of these and not worry about, do I have just the unit that goes on my camera, or do I need a different unit that goes on my strobe? And that can get expensive if you're trying to build in some redundancy. So the Plus 2 is kind of the one that I think put Pocket Wizard on the map. They were the industry standard for a long time. They were super expensive when they came out. Used, you can get them $30 to $50 maybe for the Plus 2, depending on where you get it and how lucky you are. I would take a look at the antenna. They're kind of rubbery, and I would just make sure that it's not too well bent. The Plus 3, the antenna is built in. It has groups A, B, C, D. It has other features, which I'm not going to get into here. But, because the antenna is built in, it is, you don't have to worry about that bending if it goes into your bag. The other thing about the Plus 3 is that it sits sideways. So the Plus 3 and the Younguno have kind of a low profile, if you will, on your camera. The Plus 2 is it's like putting a deck of cards on top of your camera. So some people don't like that because it can block their view a little bit. Both the Plus 3 and the Plus 2, both the Pocket Wizards, can take household power to power them. You don't need batteries, so you just need to get an adapter to work with those. And I've done that, and it works just great. It's just, one less set of batteries that you need to hunt down. So big fan of these. The way I like to work is I will use a radio trigger to fire my main strobe. If I have an additional set of strobes in my on my set, then I will typically plug in one of the ultras. Even on the Pro Photo, even though it has a built-in slave, I'll plug in one of the ultras. It's just it's rock solid that I know it's always going to fire. In other words, you don't need to have one of these electronic sinks attached to every one of the strobes that's in your set. So the other thing I would point out is that on the Pro Photo, it takes a cord that looks like this. So that's a 3.5 millimeter jack goes in. That's the connector on the right. And in this case, it's the output is for a phono plug. This you can buy on Amazon. It's non-camera equipment. They're under $5. So big fan of that. With the Younguno, you need to get what's called a PC sync. That's the tip at the top of this cable. And then at the bottom, it can be either household or it can be a phono plug. And those, once you say you need a PC connection, you need to go to some place that sells camera equipment. And they're not that expensive. You just have to look a little bit harder to find them. The other thing on this is that this is mono. It's non-stereo. So I don't know if you can use stereo. I would assume that you can. but mono works. And if you're confused about what kind of cable to work with your, if you want to use a Pocket Wizard, Pocket Wizard makes the cables too, and they're really not that expensive. You just have to go to a camera store to get them. So those are my quick thoughts. If you think about it, we have ProPhoto, we have Speedotron, we have Wein, we have Pocket Wizard, we have Younguno, and we have some no-name cables. So none of these are all the same brand. In other words, I do not need to get a ProPhoto sync solution in order to make my ProPhoto pack work. I do not need to get a Speedotron sync solution in order to make the Speedotron. It is all mix and match, which is kind of cool. And it can do that because all you're doing is literally telling the pack to fire whenever you fire the shutter on your camera. So I hope this helps if you are confused or if you're still thinking a little bit about using a pack. I would highly encourage you to go ahead and try it. It's not that expensive, and once you start working with different modifiers or maybe even kind of making some of your own modifiers, you're really going to start to build upon your understanding of light and build on some other creative ways that you can use for photography.